Hello and welcome everybody, I'm One Proper Variant, and today we're here with what I would consider the longest dev diary to be ever written. It just never ends, and I think you can already guess that that means that, yes, this video is going to be pretty long. So make sure that you are sitting down, that you have something to drink, and that you can relax while I walk you through all of this. This is dev diary number 149 for Crusader Kings III, and it is called Administrative Government Part 2. If you missed my first video, I already talked a lot about everything that we know there so far. I also did talk about my regret about my peeving here, where essentially it looks like we are never going to get modular government. Basically what I was hoping for was, a set of laws. We had that kind of already in CK2 that differentiates who we are and makes it so that I can become different rather than always better, and that doesn't seem to be the case. This government right here is specifically meant for the Byzantines, and then indeed also every other endgame empire, which effectively means it's an endgame kind of government. It's just better than feudalism or clan and so on. Whether it's actually good and fun, that's a different question. I don't really know whether I will ever get over the fact that we are not going to be seeing modularity here, but that doesn't have to mean that the government itself isn't fun. So today we're going to go through step by step. I have prepared a whole bunch of remarks that I definitely want to cover per category, and we're going to explore whether this looks good, whether there is some fun to be had here, because my god, that already would mean a lot. Let's start by talking about governors. We already cut into this topic at least somewhat in the last video, and today we're going to learn much more about them. Governors are the foundation of an administrative realm. In order to make it easy to both see and inspect all of the governors, we present an overview of the realm in a new interface. We've already seen that in the last dev diary. Here you can see who the different governors are, how good they are, which noble family they belong to, and their current line of succession. We want you to be able to get an at-a-glance view of not just the realm at large, but what themes you could potentially attempt to get your hands on, and which themes your own noble family already controls. As a vassal, you will even have a quick access to some common actions that you may take towards the emperor. We can see the last part in particular right here. That was exactly effectively what I was guessing at the time. Then we see the state faith, we see the individual themes that are sorted by kingdoms. Then over here we have noble families. We're going to talk about that in just a bit, but that was a big topic last week, so go check out the old video for that. Other than that, we talked about governor efficiency. That will also be explored more in detail here today, and then the theme type, all of which, again, a big topic today. I will say that in general, I actually really like this interface. The one question that I have is, what does this mean? Sometimes you also see a green symbol here. I still don't really know what it means. I have kind of had a couple of theories, and all of them never really make fully sense in all circumstances here on the screenshot, so I'm not entirely sure. Let's just put that, kind of on the back burner. For the time being, this obviously here makes sense. You look at this, you see which households, whatever, and then when you click on one of them, you get this interface right here. I would assume... I wonder what this looks like, actually. No, there's a question right here. If I am the Byzantine Empire and I create, let's say, the Kingdom of Hellas, or the Kingdom of Sicily, or the Kingdom of Pontus, do I still see the themes within the now existing theme of these kingdoms, or are the kingdoms the only theme that will be relevant in this interface? Who the hell knows? Right now this just looks like essentially a vassal map mode, and then of course, in the framework right here, we can see what the income is, what the type is, we can see how many counties there are, we can see the governor efficiency, who it is, and then we can also see that we can invest in candidates. More on that as we go. I wonder what this means. See, I was thinking about this. The green and red, I originally thought it meant like my house holds this, but that is already here. If you see your house symbol, which we don't actually see anyway here, this is House Dukas, for example, then you will know that this is yours. Anyway, we can invest in candidates, and we're going to explore this because, of course, that is a really important topic, because that is how all succession works in administrative government. Anyway, let's move on from this screenshot. The first objective of any landless noble is to try and make themselves a governor, as this is one of the best ways to gain further influence. Governors are the backbone of any administrative realm, and they have a significant impact on how well the realm performs, which is of key importance to the emperor in particular. Any administrative realm who holds land alongside a duchy, other than their family title or kingdom, becomes what we refer to as governors. So, it doesn't happen on the county level, it happens on the duchy and kingdom level. When a character becomes a governor for the first time, they also get the governor trait. At first, this trait does not offer much value. As you gain trait experience and level it up, however, it starts providing some significant bonuses, especially in regard to the amount of influence that you will get, making the trait a great source of influence gain if you can get it to those higher levels. The rank of the trait can be seen as their overall experience as a governor, and the trait will level up as you perform your duties, handsomely rewarding you for your services towards the empire. this right here is something I think that I, without any kind of, caveats, really like. Turning this into a legitimate career, where we have this feature, the trait path here with the leveled, the tiers that we have in these traits. They exist now, for example, for Hasteluder as well, that kind of stuff, right? I love that. Turning this into something I can proactively get better, and we're going to talk about how you exactly do this as well. Really cool. When you start out, so we have to picture this, right? Because I always like to talk about these systems in the context of what would it be like to actually play this particular playthrough, right? You start out, you just own your estate, at some point you become a governor, and then you start out like this. You have nothing, you don't get any benefits just because you are the governor of Thessalonica. I mean, okay, it's nice, you get money, I'm sure, and maybe even like a baseline of influence and prestige, as it is in feudal territories as well. And then as you get better, as you level up this trait, take a look at these benefits. Diplomacy, martial stewardship, and intrigue +2. That is insane. That is really good here for level 4. And then we have influence +5 per month, which ultimately means we are looking at a massive increase. And I don't think this updated here. Yeah, they just cheated the trait in, right? So the value here hasn't updated. But that means that 2/3, or even, well, actually slightly less than 2/3 of the exact income that is going on here for the influence of Strategos Nikephoros comes entirely from this trait, which means it comes entirely from you working hard. You can be born into a great house, and it might make it easier to become a governor, but to actually be recognized, to start building up influence, that comes here with this trait. Now, I have to say, my caveat here is kind of, we talked about this, at least as a thought. I had the thought right at the time, and I even said this is probably not going to be in. I would be surprised if it wasn't, right? But I was talking about, hey, okay, I would really like it if we could, for example, not become a governor and instead become, for example, a general. So we have now the position of being a general, and we can lead troops, and then we also have a tier trait there, right? Maybe that is something for modders, but it seems that basically to gain influence will primarily be via you being a governor. That is a pretty straightforward path. I understand why they would choose it, but I do also think that I would really like some more kind of just, non-landed titles, where I can rise up because I, for example, have commanded this and that campaign, maybe even with a level trait, and my god, that would be great as well. But the main way, and this is the way it will work in vanilla, is by being a governor. Unlike vassals of other government types, administrative governors will normally only hold a single governorship at a time. This limit exists for 2 reasons. The first is regarding immersion and logic. If you are appointed as a governor of a province somewhere, you wouldn't also be appointed to a different province somewhere else. If you were, you would take up your new position and be replaced as governor for your initial province by someone else. Secondly, we want to encourage the use of family members to a much larger extent for administrative governments. Once you have secured a governorship for yourself, you will have to start making use of your family. Having family members in high places allows for a wider spreading web of influence. Given that there is a cap on influence investments, which we discussed below, the more family members you have to spend influence supporting your candidates, the more powerful your family may become. Another limitation is that potential governors always have to be adults. Being a governor is much more a job than inheriting a regular title. If you happen to find yourself in a situation where you don't have any adult children, you would go back to being a landless noble. I have 2 thoughts on this. The first one, and we kind of went into this, and we're going to go deep into this in this video as well last week already. The first one is, this is such a different gameplay loop, both from Imperial CK2 and from feudal or any other type of government in CK3. What I mean is, even in CK2's, what was it called? Imperial? Was it just called Imperial? In CK2's Imperial gameplay, you still wanted to blob. You very much wanted to expand. I haven't played, admittedly, Imperial in quite some time. I think last time I played it was for my CK2 SPQR run, where you conquer all of... That terrible run, I hated that run, not fun at all. But basically, I was doing it there, and your start is, you want to hold a theme, and you want to keep blobbing until you get an inheritable title. Because if you didn't do it, that meant once you die, your theme goes back to the Emperor. That's the way it worked. Your theme would always go back to the Emperor. And the Emperor could give it to somebody else, which meant you might just be reduced to a count for no reason whatsoever. Now you have to retake and yada yada yada. It sucked. It was not fun. But blobbing was still the intention. You wanted to cement your reign by being locally tied to some type of land. That is not the case here at all. They very clearly are saying it is not intended for you to amass governorship after governorship. And that is pretty interesting. I really like this, especially with the context of the estate. We are now in a position where I basically just have a completely different gameplay loop. I mean, this much should be clear since warfare internally in the realm isn't really a thing, as they already said, but my god, we are looking at a situation where being severed from my land, I mean, so be it, who cares? Maybe I'll put my cousin on this the next time an inheritance happens there and I just walk off to do something else. I really like that this is actually the case. It's super interesting, and it's not the only thing that is super interesting here. The other thing that I really want to stress as well, and please do track this as we go through the rest of the dev, there is already apparent here, and it will only become more apparent, at least in my opinion, is that you doing better in this system, the way they are currently showcasing it, only leads to you doing even better. What I mean here is, everything you do basically comes with a cost in CK3, in any grand strategy game. That is what makes it interesting. As we walk through this, you will see that having a bigger family, having more people invested, having a bigger yada yada yada, being more, there's never any downsides. You can already see this here, and to be fair, I don't think this trade should give you any downsides, but since you're working for it, right? But what I'm talking about is the idea that if you have a huge family, it is easier for you to have, you know, for example, many people investing in any given title that you want to inherit. It is easier because you have a higher investment cap. It is easier because everybody else has a lower one, yada yada yada. It seems to me like this system really makes it so that once you have snowballed, it's over. Oh my god, I had the Parabellum, the Lathe and Red Hawk stream on in the background. That really scared me. Don't worry about it. Okay, you didn't hear this. I heard it. I thought there was somebody in my apartment. Okay, anyway, so these are the two things that I really want to highlight here. I think that is a very, very important thing because, yeah, I really wish that there were some downsides. You have downsides, for example, and again, I wish we had modular governments instead, but if you take a look at the clan rework, what you will see right there is the bigger you are, the more might you go into a tendency where your house will have disunity, where you will infight, where there are new CBs, where your inheritance changes. That's not really the case here at all. If all governors in the empire are your family, it does not seem like there's anything except upsides. Let's keep that in mind right here, since being a governor is quite central to the experience. Anyway, let's go for appointment succession. So we know that instead of every theme falling back to the empire, and that is just the way it works, he hands it out again and you have to do this manually, which is terrible if you are the emperor, there's something else going on here. Instead, we are apparently investing in candidates, so let's take a look at how that works. Admin realms use a new form of succession called appointment. In its basic form, every character that is defined as eligible for a title is given a candidate, which is based on a scripted value. Some characters are not added to the succession list by default, but are only added after having received an investment by another character in the realm. I assume this just makes it so that calculations are not all that spammy, right? If you had every person in the realm be possibly, having their score kind of calculated, that probably would slow down the game significantly. So unless you are related to the person, unless you're interesting to that title to some degree, you have to make an investment so that you even show up in the first place. Since administrative government is primarily modeled on Byzantium, we have created two different forms of this new succession type: appointment for governors and acclamation for the emperor. You know what actually makes me think now? It makes it so that in Byzantium, different from the HRE, unless you put yourself out there for new governorships and such, you will basically never, maybe for the emperor, I'm not sure, but you will basically never inherit against your will, right? It's obviously a very common thing in the HRE, but in Byzantium, I mean, you're basically just not eligible for almost any given governorship because either you are a governor, which makes you ineligible, or I guess puts down your value, right? Your actual investment value, or you're not even on the list because you're just not relevant. I think I like this. I feel like you should never be elected accidentally for the Holy Roman Empire. You would have to work for it, right? You have to essentially go around, you have to tell people, okay, I make this and that promise, and then that gets you elected. So I think I would like to see this tendency basically for all elective systems. Now, since administrative government is primarily modeled on Byzantium, we have created two different forms of this new succession type: appointment for governors and acclamation for the emperor. The primary difference between these two lies in the calculation of candidate score and the fact that children are only eligible under acclamation succession. The emperor can be underaged, a governor can't. It's a job, it's not really an inheritable title anyway. For the rest of this section, we will take the succession of governors as the primary point of discussion, since that is what you will encounter most. For those of you who remember viceroyalties in CK2, yep, I already trash-talked them in this video, you may remember that one of the most significant drawbacks of how they worked was that constant micro of having to hand out the titles again and again. This is why in CK2 everybody at some point just created kingdom tier vassals, because if you did duchies and you were a huge realm, Oh, that really sucked. This new succession law here makes managing your vassals significantly easier, and more importantly, provides the vassals with a whole new level of agency, as they have a venue of attempting to seize titles for themselves. I love this. I already talked about this. I think this is a really good step. You and the Emperor can take, essentially make certain choices, I guess, for that title, with the Emperor having a bit more freedom, since surely he can revoke the appointments as well, so he doesn't need to wait for any type of election or, even invest influence in the election itself. But even you as a vassal can have an impact on whether you will be inheriting this title, yes or no. Anyway, an important element when you consider the landless aspect, as you won't have to sit around and wait hoping that your liege appoints you as a governor. Very, very nice. In tandem with this newfound agency for governors, the Emperor is also bound up in this rat race of politicking. While the top liege of an admin realm has a few additional tools to make changes to the lay of the realm, as is their lawful right, they must also contend with the bargaining and exchange of favors proffered by governors and noble family heads. By default, any eligible family members of the governor will be added to the line of succession for any held governorships sorted by their candidate score. Makes sense. Your family is there because, well, it is more difficult to dislodge you. We have, and again, we keep coming back to modular here, I don't really want to go too deep into this, but this is the case for any Western feudal kind of system. Everything that, for example, in France, became hereditary at some point was run by governors. That is how the Carolingian Empire ran itself. But at some point, you're so deeply rooted in that area that you take hold and that dislodging your family becomes effectively impossible, right? That is how traditions and inheritance really is established. Here, it's pretty similar. Yes, you are never really going to turn this into a hereditary title, but at the very least, you're looking at a situation where it will be easier for you and your family to hold on to a location. The score a character gets includes a wide set of factors, such as skills, their relation with the current governor, potential upgrades in the estate, and much more. Right here we can see an example of this. Let's take a look at this. This is Konstantinos Doukas and Tourmarché Nikephoros. Right here we have the skills at plus 58, own capitals popular pin -2. I guess it means if the people don't like you, obviously that is not a strong case that you should be taking over in a different governorate or even as the emperor. Is of the local culture, holder is close family +5, and investments +50. Somebody here has paid to make this person more interesting. This is exactly how it works. You have the natural meritocratic reasons, and then we come to family intrigue. Then we come to everything that makes the Byzantine Empire Byzantine. The interesting part is that other governors, landless nobles, and even the liege can spend their influence to invest in the candidacy of other characters. These investments are done per character and per title, and you can invest in characters not already in the line of succession. So here we have ourselves, who we are investing in, for the title of Byzantine Empire, right? So yes, technically appointment and acclamation are different, but they essentially function with the very same scoring mechanism. We can invest in ourselves, and if we invest 100 influence, we gain plus 20. Then we have plus 50, we have plus 226, which is a very convenient button. I really like it whenever games do that thing where they go, okay, I could make you open this menu 15 times until you've invested enough to actually be on the top of the list, or I can just make it so, hey, here, you invest as much as needed to be number one. Obviously, we are not doing this right here. Currently, 100 maps into 20 candidate scores, so that is 100 influence. Medium deduction and major deduction, you can see it right here. You can work against other people as well. I guess it means, I see it now. I wonder, is the investment cap, and I think we are only going to see the actual stat for that later. Am I blind here? There's so much going on, by the way. Again, this is an infinite thing. Or did we see the investment cap here already? I don't think it shows here yet. Anyway, my point being, if I take away investment in a character that I hate, that I don't want to inherit, does this count towards my investment cap? It should, right? It's a negative investment, but it's essentially me kind of spending my political capital. Now, I will tell you right now, I think the way they are using influence here, to me personally, makes it so that influence is a really good resource. If we did this like we did it in CK2 with the Merchant Republics, where you just dunk money into it and that is all you do, I think that would kind of suck. It makes it very intransparent, and most importantly, it makes it so that, well, yeah, you just transform any type of currency into influence. We're going to take a look at influence as well. Obviously, there are some currency transfers going on there, but in general, influence is something you work for by becoming better. You can be rich, but not be a good governor. If that is the case, then you are not going to generate a lot of influence. To me, this does make sense. Like we said this in the last video, the sources for getting influence make a lot of sense to me, where we're spending it could be a bit dangerous every now and again. Anyway, that said, we do impose an investment cap, like already mentioned, which is calculated from a variety of factors, but is primarily based on your house's powerful family rating. The higher you are, the easier will it be for you to invest, which, again, doesn't seem to have a lot of downsides. This means that you can only invest up to a certain amount of influence per character, per title, and that is directly proportional to the power of your house. Say you've hit the cap, but your candidate still isn't first in the line of succession. What then? You must... Oh, and I actually dislike this kind of... I realized this only now. I was under the impression that my influence essentially works like a Victoria 3 capacity, where I have this kind of cap, and the cap says, okay, everything you do, your entire network, right, your entire secretive intrigue network where you are trying to get people onto certain governorships, you can only do so much of it, but it's only per character and per title. Oh my god. Which means I can have, if I have the influence, which I probably won't, that is like where the limit is, but I can invest like crazy into every title because it's not actually like a comprehensive thing, it is just per character, per title, which means I can go up all the way to the cap for the Byzantine Empire, and then go all the way down against the other person that I don't want to inherit because they have their own cap for their title for me, right? That's pretty crazy. Like, that makes it a lot more Wild West than kind of like, you know, a Victoria 3 capacity that ties everything together. There are a lot of loose ends here, I feel, at the very least, when it comes to balancing. Maybe they nailed it, but that seems pretty difficult to do here with that cap. Anyway, what then? You must convince other governors and noble families heads to support your candidate if you have hit your cap, whether through goodwill, bribes, exerting more influence, or the like. See, that now I do like. Obviously, they have done something with schemes we're going to talk about at length, although it is mostly guessing what we're going to be doing here today. But yeah, they've changed schemes there, and getting people to do something for you, I think, is a huge theme here in the Byzantine Empire. Request appointment support. We're requesting support for our heir from this guy. So this guy is meant to support him, and we're doing this by using a weak hook. So for this, we don't need a weak hook. It's just, you know, obviously makes it so that they will actually say yes. We spend, or actually, this guy actually spends influence. So it's not just that we kind of just get a modifier. He actually loses out on a resource. I really wonder whether the AI will do this to us as well. This one I'm actually kind of... I'm more okay with, but there's nothing here that is, that says what happens if they decline. So I don't feel like they're gonna decline, or it's not possible here, right? If I decline this, I guess it should make me, like, kind of less trustworthy, right? We talked about this already, but yeah, I'm okay with this one, actually. If the AI uses this against me, that's completely fine, right? Surely I can say no, unless they have a hook on me, at which point, yeah, I mean, it's a hook. That's the way it works. Investing in a character for a title will make them appear in the line of succession, getting their own candidate score, which is increased further by the amount of influence you choose to invest. So, not only can you make yourself, or members of your family, appear in the line of succession of other governorships, but by spending large amounts of influence, you can even compete to make your candidate appear first in line. Then, all you need is for the current governor to have a happy little accident. That's a pretty classic CK way of going about it, though. A true Byzantine politica would go a more political route and force the governor to resign their appointment, or use the new slander scheme to run their reputation into the ground. See, as okay as I was with this one up there, I'm not sure about this one. Force governor resignation. I really like that we lose so much opinion with everybody. I mean, look at this. Minus 50 with himself, and then minus 25 with everybody in that house. That is pretty crazy. But if the AI does this, and I had like a big plan of being this governor, doing stuff, and all of a sudden I'm forced out, this is an interaction. It is not a scheme. We can't do anything about this. This is a one-off. You click this button and it's done. Well, if the emperor agrees, right? So yeah, I like, obviously, yeah, the politicking. We can't really declare war, so it has to be done through other means, for example, an interaction or a scheme. But this, it's just so abrupt, right? Obviously, I can see the influence sink right here, but yeah, still, I'm not too sure about this. Now, I will say, I like the entire affair here, but I will circle back to this. We talked, last video, we talked about the house estate. And I'm going to come back to this here as well, because it has to do with how you inherit titles and what that means for your househead existence. If I lose househead title, right, the title, I have to benefit from any house estate, I have to go and found a cadet branch, which basically severs me from the already existing house. What annoys me through this is, if I lose my title, or if one of my relatives loses my title, right, it makes sense. Why can't I go to the head of the house estate and say, hey, can you invest here so that I can become governor over there? The way it is right now, once I get ousted and I'm not the house head, I have to create my own estate again via cadet branch and can't really get any help from the other house that I just abandoned. I don't like this. I think this scenario, a scenario that we have right here, where I get ousted or where one of my family members get ousted, would be perfect to have the estate as like a unifying mechanic. My nephew gets ousted, returns to the estate, laments, the position. We all say, wow, we really hate them. Take a look at this because this is house-based, right? And all of a sudden we have a house feud. Instead, they might just create their own house, get their own estate, and then, finagle their way around politics in Byzantium. I really think house estates should be a bit more of a collective thing. It is what it is, but I think it is a bit of a missed opportunity just looking at this right here. Now, this is the next huge, the next massive topic, and we don't have all the information on this yet. And they also point this out, actually, if we go down here. CM note, we will talk more about the changes to this particular mechanic in a future dev diary. This right here is schemes, and it is not looking in any way, shape, or form recognizable to what we have currently in the game. Let's analyze this top to bottom. This is a political scheme. We know there are personal schemes, there are hostile schemes, and political schemes. Political schemes seem to be limited to just Byzantium. I don't think they ever mention it being used anywhere else. I don't know whether this is now going to be the interface for all schemes, or whether it is just for political schemes. I do know, though, take a look at this, we can slander him. We have, this looks like success. We have a minimum chance and a maximum chance. What I'm not sure about is, do we start at this minimum chance and can somehow reach up here? Or is this the general kind of, standard area that we are in? If I were to execute this scheme, right, would I have a chance between 3 and 66% that then gets randomly determined? Or can I reach a chance of 66% and then if I execute, I get that? I am not sure about how exactly that works. You can see 10 days till next phase. So there are phases now. Wonder what that means, whether it's like a struggle phase, whether it is just like it rolls over and analyzes whether you can make progress or something. We already kind of have that now that I think about it, right? The individual segments that you can fill in schemes, they already kind of do this with phases. Then we have 15% secrecy, which sounds terrible. In CK3 right now, if I have 15% secrecy, I abandon the plot. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. Here, 15% secrecy and 12 months grace left. I wonder whether the grace kind of means that... it could mean if I back out of this scheme, within 12 months, I don't get a secret. It could mean that, right? Where it's like, okay, so if you back out of this of murdering a person, for example... Not a secret. Attempted murder, not a secret because you were just thinking about it, right? That could be a thing, but what if I executed before 12 months are over? I'm not sure what the grace here really means. Then we have a modifier, of course, sure, the scheme kind of modifies itself. We have execute scheme. This leads right here, I think. Let's take a look at that in a second. And then we now have dedicated agent slots. Now, you might not be aware of this because current CK3 schemes don't really work this way, but you already have agents in CK3, except we most of the time don't use it unless, I don't know, win over the wife or, for example, the spy master of a certain character, that kind of stuff. Here, they actually have specific roles. So these impact the phases. These impact some of the success. It's a slightly different symbol, but it's just a modified success symbol, right? And we can recruit agents. Man, so... that's a big one. I don't know. What I am thinking is... There are two chances here. And one is clearly my favorite, how I would like to see it. These scheme agents could just be random people like they are currently, except they get specific roles. Or maybe this comes down to you can actually infiltrate certain courts. Like, there might be a courtier that comes your way and says, hey, I would like to offer you my services. Turns out that guy's a spy. He will become a diplomat in the next slander scheme against you. Maybe that guy's a herald, that kind of stuff. Meaning, if I'm a person that loves scheming, right, I would send a couple of spies into the Byzantine court, and all of a sudden I would be great at scheming over there. But if I scheme in the court of, let's say, Hellas, well, I'm not that great. I have nobody there. I would really like this. If these are just generic agents, as we know them from right now, then... I mean, I guess they have a better function than just improving certain things, right, the way it currently works, but it would be kind of disappointing for me. I would really like it if I had, like, even a map mode, although CK3 is very sparingly using map modes. I'll tell you this right now, I'm very deeply disappointed there when we compare this to even Hoi 4, to Stellaris, to, well, EU4 is kind of a mixed bag, but stuff like Imperator Rome, right, Victoria 3, obviously, where map modes are so interactively used, Imperator in particular. I would love it if CK3 now has like a map where you see highlight cards of certain, for example, you look at the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and then you see I have 3 agents in there as a highlight. I would love that. That is my dream for this scheme rework. Obviously, there's a lot different here already, but yeah, the agents are something that I'm just focusing on because they now actually have a very particular purpose. You want some socialite, I guess, in your court or in your enemy's court so that you can recruit them indeed. Then down here, we have execute scheme. I will first of all say, beautiful top right here. Other than that, I hate when this stuff looks like this. What is this? Really? Could have just been like 4 square buttons, like tiny. Anyway, we have 10 opportunities. Oh, and I completely overread this. Right, so this means opportunities. To execute a scheme, you need keys into this lock right here. And here we have amassed 10 opportunities. I assume having more opportunities makes it so that you have a higher chance at succeeding, right? Because seize the moment, okay, execute with confidence, that sounds good. Leverage advantages, now we're talking. And then cover every angle. You are in complete control. So the more opportunities you have, however you gain them, maybe that is like done via events, maybe, oh, God, I would love that. Okay, what if you host a feast, invite your enemy, and that gives you opportunities? That could be pretty cool, but it's so involved. If scheming is the main activity in the Byzantine Empire, it seems super involved, over-involved almost, to, have to invite people to really be able to execute that scheme. Anyway, obviously, these opportunities here play a role. Then we see the success chance right here, maximum of 92%. Whether that is like in between, I'm not sure. But yeah, take a look at that. This is what the new schemes look like. We don't have more information on this. But my dream, seriously, is to be the master spy would require having people on your payroll. You maintain them, right? Even if it's like, oh, I'm giving you a payment of 0.05 per month, whatever. That would be amazing. Would even make it a big difference, of course, whether you are scheming in that court or in that court, which right now it doesn't really do. Yes, having, for example, some enemy's wife as your lover will let them aid you, but at the same time, your spy master and your own abilities mostly make or break how schemes work, right? Anyway, what are your theories? This is a big one because they don't explain it, well, going forward at all, because that's something for a different dev diary. Super interesting stuff right here. Let's go back to what is actually in this dev diary and what is actually explained though. Since a character can normally hold only a single governorship at a time, they can't inherit a second one. Super important. There's a big concern that I have there. There are ways to get a second governorship, even if you already have one, but it will be the exception rather than the rule. You will have to rely on your family members getting and holding governorships if you want to extend your family's influence, and spending your influence to invest in their candidacy for a given title is the primary way of doing so. You won't be the only one attempting to contest titles, however. You will be competing with the other noble families of the realm, all attempting to secure governorships for themselves. So, to come back to the example of how does this play, let's play this through. I own only a family estate. I father 10 children. I get an actual governorship for me. I become a great governor, giving me a ton of influence. And then, since I can't really conquer, wars aren't really permitted, I'm not eligible to inherit other governorships. We will see an exception right here, but it seems to be an exception. I will go around and put my adult children into other governorships, right? That is what I'll be doing. So I will pour my influence into the candidate score of my children in other governorships. And then with their aid, I can push other children even more. I can make them, right, if I have a hook on them anyway, I can make them invest in other children and other titles, and ultimately I would end up with me holding a governorship and all 10 of my children holding other governorships as well. This would make it so that you can dominate the realm without ever going to war, and you would mostly be doing this via influence and via these schemes, right? You would slander them, you would force governor resignation if the heir to that governorship is like here, our heir, right? Because this guy then gets the theme. This is literally what we're talking about there. And that's the main gameplay loop. This really has to be understood. Now, what worries me here, if I have 10 children, okay, no, let's do a different example. Let's say I have 3 children. I give 2 children, my firstborn and my secondborn, their own themes. So I get them to be governors. The way inheritance currently works in CK3, whoever inherits your primary title will also become your actual heir. At least that is the most common circumstance if they are your family member. I think electorally, and I haven't done this in a while, like I haven't lost an election in a while, but I think if you are voting for a different child of yours in an election, and then a different child takes over, you become your primary heir, so your actual firstborn, right? But my point being here, if my theme now has my thirdborn as the first candidate to get elected, because my other two first and second-born are not eligible to inherit the governorship, do I become the third-born child? This may not sound like a problem to you, but it kind of is, because that firstborn child will, by the rules of househead inheritance, be the househead. At least that is how it works in my mind, right? That is how I understand this. Which means I am no longer the househead. That means, even if I'm careful and I have my firstborn, I covet them, you know, I take care of them, I never give them their own theme. Maybe I'll make them like a count or something. I don't know whether counts get governorship experience. We'll see that in a second. But my point here is, if that firstborn dies, I may get like my eighthborn, right? The one person that I haven't gotten a governorship for yet, I may get them as my actual heir, because they get my primary title, which is my theme. And that could make it so that I'm getting knocked out of owning the house estate. I keep talking about this, but I wish house estates were semi-shared, where it's basically like, yeah, well, hey, it's our house. Obviously, we work together, right? Because what you have to see is once we lose the house estate, I either start killing my brothers to get the house title back, or I have to found my own house, which kind of really sucks, because then I have no upgrades, or I lose my theme and I lose the game, right? Because then I have nothing. That is like a potential that is in there. This worries me. I asked in the thread actually about this, and I didn't get an answer, so here we are. But keep that in mind, because this is one of those edge cases where I'm like, it could be such a huge source of frustration. You work for your children, and then all of a sudden you notice, oh, they can't inherit my title because they are governor themselves. Well, I guess that really sucks for my house title. Anyway, one way for characters to slide into this exception, so into having multiple governorships, is by scheming to subsume another governorship. This new scheme allows governors to leverage all their intrigue and influence to secure an additional neighboring governorship appointment. That said, each title will retain its own line of succession and be granted to different governors upon succession. Investing in candidates for various titles is going to be one of the primary ways for you to spend and utilize your influence. That said, there are numerous ways of getting your house members into positions of power. You just have to play your cards right. I am fundamentally very interested in this gameplay loop. I think it's interesting. I like in particular that maybe at some point I'll just go, you know what? I'm giving up this team. I hope I can do that. You can force others to retire. Not sure whether you can retire, but like I would like to sometimes just do this, let one of my other family members take over in that theme, right? And I just walk around, maybe, I don't know, I'll take over like a border theme, that kind of stuff. I like this playstyle. What we have to very much acknowledge, though, is amassing titles as you do it in every other gameplay loop in CK3 is not how this works, right? We gotta kind of get rid of that reflex. I think, I really hope that it feels natural, right? Because right now, when you load into any character, amassing titles, especially through war, you know, much more than in CK2, I would argue, through war, amassing titles is your primary existence justification, right? That is what you do. That's not the case here. That's really, really interesting. I just hope that, like, it's really like natural to play that way, because it's very much the opposite of what we're used to. In general, I will say I like this new inheritance. I like it way better than Vice Royalties in CK2. Those were really god-awful. I do like the idea that it's also limited. You will never really inherit something just because you exist, right? You will very rarely, if ever, get so lucky. I'm not so sure about the limitations of only holding one governorship. Again, obviously it makes sense that that is the standard. That is how governorships work. I do wonder, and they don't explain this here ever, whether I, as a vassal, can create titles. So what I mean is, let's say I own Cyprus, all of Cyprus, that's my theme. And then I take over, I don't know, through subsumed governorship. I wonder whether you can do it overseas. They don't really say here. But let's say through that, I also take Damascus, or Jerusalem, or, you know, whatever. Can I create a title of Cyprus? Making myself a king, which is kind of different from just being a ducal theme? As a king theme, can I take over other theme vassals elsewhere, or am I limited to my de jure king theme? A lot of questions there. Again, it also obviously continues, and we're going to see this later with the Imperial Bureaucracy, like crown authority stuff. What happens if I'm feudal? I don't have access to influence at all. Obviously, I can become admin, I can convert, right? But if I'm in an admin realm, can I still just conquer other admin territories? Because there's only some limits on whether I can declare wars as a non-admin vassal, right? And this whole influence, this whole politicking goes out of the window the moment feudal Georgia becomes a vassal and just starts eating their way through theme and theme and theme. A lot of questions here, but in general, both the governors and governor inheritance, to me, seems like really nice systems. They seem fun, if they manage to feel natural. That is obviously a big one, because they just are so different from the standard gameplay loop. Alright, now let's move on to governor efficiency, a topic that I'm relatively lukewarm on. All governors have something we call governor efficiency. It can be described as how good they are at their job of being a governor. It is a value set between -50 and +50. Obviously, it's easy. You have a negative value, that's bad. A positive value, that's good. They could have done 0 and 100, but who cares? And acts as a modifier on the land a governor holds. It translates directly into how much levies or tax their holdings provide. Let's say a governor has a -25% efficiency. The holdings of that governor then provide 25% less taxes and levies. A governor's efficiency is mainly decided by their overall skills. They will need a minimum amount of skill points to go above the -50% threshold. When their skills are high enough, every skill point will further increase their efficiency, meaning that a highly skilled character will have a much higher efficiency, and therefore also be a much more valuable vassal. While efficiency is mainly a measurement of a character's overall skill, there are a few other factors that greatly impact their total efficiency. We want a character's education and experience as a governor to matter. While these traits do provide some positive additional skills, thus increasing their base efficiency, they also grant a bonus on top of it. So what matters? Overall skill, rank of the governor trait, having a rank 4 or 5 education, upgrades in the estate. Again, the better you are, the better you are. Not really any downsides. The administration type of their governorship, eunuchs have an extra bonus, making them better than average as governors, and mentor in governance, a scheme where you attempt to improve a governor's efficiency. If we take a look at this, you can see we have plus 30% right here. This is the base. Then we have from skills plus 119, so we are really good in intrigue in particular, but in general we just have good skills, right? Stewardship, so this is civilian administration, we get a bonus on this from stewardship, and then stewards of empire. To me this reads like this is a dynasty legacy, right? Like a dynasty legacy perk. I do like the interface here. Were these borders always here? I like the way this looks. I think this looks completely fine. You can also, by the way, see Byzantine the Theodosian walls right here. There you go. Look at that. So they have a new model, I guess, for Byzantium. Interesting. Anyway, for convenience, we show a character's efficiency in the character view if a character is administrative, regardless of if they are a governor or not, or if they are completely landless. This makes it easy to see the efficiency of existing governors and the potential efficiency of a character you might want to appoint as a governor. For the Emperor of an administrative realm, this is handy for deciding who to appoint as governors, if they have the necessary influence. For noble family heads, this is a good indicator of which family members will perform well, and would therefore be good candidates for investment. Sometimes these considerations will fortunately overlap, but more often than not, there will be wide-scale political friction amongst those jockeying for the same governorship. I am lukewarm about this because this isn't novel. This is not new at all. When you hand out any given title in any given government right now, you always look for, are they good? This is just the way it is. Because anybody that is good will bring more resources. There's no two ways about it. This just makes it so that this is now summarized in one central stat. I'm not against this at all, but ask yourself, how often do you actually care whether you're giving this land to a highly competent or a highly incompetent person? Listen, I encourage to do it via roleplay, right? Super important to me as well, but it doesn't matter that much. Balancing isn't that tight, it's not that exact. You don't need to optimize just how much exactly Holland actually spits out in income. It doesn't really matter. All you care for is that they sit still and, just give you money and levies and don't really rebel. I don't think this is bad at all, but I'm very curious whether I will ever actually go while playing, hey, I really need to give this piece of land to a super competent character, or that I won't just go, I'm giving it to my family. I mean, who do you think you are? This stuff's going to my family, of course. It makes me more powerful, makes me better, right? I point this out in particular because, again, like I said, it only goes upwards. The bigger, the better you are, the bigger and better you are. There's no downsides. And here is a very clear indication of this as well. With there being no downsides, obviously I'm going to hand this over to my family. Why wouldn't I do this, right? Like, what is possibly here something that I would be gaining in addition from this, especially, of course, early on, when each individual county and theme and such don't even spit out that many resources to begin with. Now, anyway, let's talk about something that I'm not lukewarm, but rather very positive about, and that is governor duties. Let's circle back to being a governor, the governor trait specifically. As we mentioned above, you will get trait experience for performing your duties as a governor. This can be done in multiple ways. For example, you are expected to construct buildings in the holdings you control. Whenever a building finishes its construction, you will gain some trait experience as well as some minor amounts of influence. I love this. I think this is really good. Making it so that I have a reason to invest in a county because it levels up my governorship skill very quickly and then gives me a ton of influence. Really good. There's now a reason to not just invest in your estate, but rather make it so that the realm becomes better, right? Makes perfect sense. The primary way of leveling up your governor trait is by solving what we call governor issues. These appear on the map, most often in the form of various issues you have to deal with for you to address as soon as you are able. This right here is rampant bandits. Your attention is required, strategos. Outlaws and unruly nomads beset this region of your theme. For locals to be safe, for traders to move freely, they need to be dealt with. If we succeed, we get experience, we can get any of these resources, and maybe the county you're holding even becomes better. Most of the government issues are problems you have to solve in some ways, but not all of them are issues. If you have baronies with farmland terrain in your governorship, you might enjoy a higher chance to reap the benefits of a bountiful harvest, allowing you to choose what to do with the surplus. Are you the diligent governor who provides for the people, increasing development and granting you some governor trait experience in the process, or are you using that stuff for yourself? You can see this right here. Bountiful harvest. St. Bridget has been kind to us, right? We have a plenty of harvest. What do we do with it? Distribute it alongside the regular grain, or the provincial capital must benefit. Here, the development goes up. I assume this also encourages development growth going forward. And then I assume this one right here makes people, maybe like popular opinion, and maybe gives you government skill. But yeah, you can see this is how it works. I'm just looking at the stats up here. I don't see anything that really is interesting. As an aside, you may also notice the colorful new art. Yep, we already took a look at that. Regardless of the situation, the overall format is fairly straightforward. If the issue appears in a barony that isn't your capital, you will usually have to travel there in order to solve it. Love traveling, that's nice. When successful, or if you don't have a skill duel to succeed, you are presented with a few different options of how to tackle the issue at hand, so we either need to succeed or is just a benefit. These options are typically randomized, but the number of options available depends on the level of your governor trait, giving you greater selection of options as you gain more experience. Every option offers slightly different rewards. You may gain varying amounts of trait experience, some will offer you some gold or prestige, perhaps your character gets a modifier with some long-term benefits, etc. Titles for sale. Take a look at this. Here, spiritual titles are being sold and we must act. The gold should be donated to religious institutions. We can take it. We can force them to repent. I assume this gives you... So this obviously gives you government experience because you have the trade right here. This right here enriches you. This right here gives you piety. I could use a favor, and this right here gives you a favor from this random guy who is just a random guy. I don't think this is your court chaplain. Anyway, this is what this looks like. You will get governor issues every few years or so. They are not meant to be very frequent, but still be something you get on a somewhat regular basis. The issues you get will, to some extent, reflect your theme and how it's being managed. They offer a unique experience, in that it is you, the governor, who has the responsibility to manage the land you are appointed to, and solve any issues that may appear, unlike a feudal structure where each subject has to manage their own lands. I like the idea of this. There are various concerns. I really like this idea, I should say. Actually engaging with your territory, making sure that you have to kind of settle certain disputes and such. I'm a big fan. And look at that, by the way. This is a highest... This is like a higher quality contract or something. What concerns me is pretty simple to understand, I think. We have discussed how important influence is, how snowballing leads to even more snowballing, and how good the governor trait for influences. In what world am I not getting every single time the option that gives me government XP? In what world am I not doing this? It's so vital. Oh, let me have 22 gold. If you give me just 1 XP, I think, so like not 1 progress bar, right? But like a single XP in that trait, I would still take it. Because this is the best investment I can humanly make. Which to me means these aren't really options. Until you have the full trait, you always just get more XP, right? I like the idea of this, but that is a big concern for me. I feel like everything else is just a trap option. And then the other element to this is for sure as well, do they disappear? If I don't deal with them, does my theme get worse? Are there governors where the theme gets worse because they just neglect it, right? If I appoint a bad governor, do they neglect these? And that then means the theme gets worse. We kind of have this when it comes to regions, where it's like, this regent is selfish, he's going to try to siphon money out, this regent is not selfish, he's going to try to enforce your power. Depending on what regent you get, they will act differently. Not too big a fan of regencies to begin with, but that is interesting. Is that in here? Or is it when a contract pops up and I don't take it, the contract will still be there in 30 years, in which case they're basically just court events if you really think about it. Those kind of make or break the feature for me. I feel like these will always be trap options just because of how important and how good influence is. So yeah, I like these, but I think there's stuff to worry about here, and I haven't gotten any answers about it, so I'm not sure. Alright, and now the next subject here is called administration type, and I am a big fan of this. I think I'm in love with this. This is something, I think a lesson learned from vassal contracts. Vassal contracts are interesting. We have some movement towards what they're doing here for everything related to clan already. That came with the tax collector stuff, but I feel like the tax collector stuff is actually less interesting. It is worse depicted on the map. This one right here looks great. Let's talk about the different administration types, because they will determine how people behave, what you get out of it, and what you can do if you take over this or that theme, making it quite interesting to be a vassal, but also to be an emperor that configures their realm. First of all, we have balanced. The balanced administration is your default and does not change or add anything drastic. Let's not even talk about it anymore. This is this right here. All it does, it gives the vassal a higher trait experience gain percentage, so a booster, which seems pretty nice. That's really, really good. That is also the current administration right here. Then we have civilian, so that is this symbol. A civilian administration is all about improving the economy and encouraging overall development. Here, the governor also gains a bonus to their efficiency based on their stewardship. Let's take a look at this right here. Taxes go up, levies go down, the vassal gets fewer men-at-arms regiments attached to their title. We're going to talk about that. I really like where the military stuff is going here, but let's continue. Building construction is easier, and then development growth goes up. Other vassal benefits, you get a boost to your efficiency based on stewardship, and influence gains from constructing buildings in held counties is increased. Now, the next one here is the direct opposite. This is the military. Military administration focuses on troops by increasing the number of troops you have access to and keeping the land safe. Martial is the name of the game, and the governor gets an efficiency bonus from their own martial skill. Take a look at this. Taxes down, levies up, max number of title men-at-arms goes up, men-at-arms damage goes up, development growth goes down, control growth goes up, and increases governor efficiency based on martial. So that means, depending on what you're good at, you might want to rule a different kind of theme, which I think is a really interesting thing. Yes, you're looking at a situation where, well, you can't really do all that much since you can't wage internal wars, but you can excel nonetheless, as these types are very much geared towards different player types. Then we have Frontier, and this is my beloved. Here's where things start to get interesting. A Frontier administration can only be used for themes along the border. It gives the governor some hefty defensive bonuses to give you a much easier time defending against invasions. It also gives the vassal access to a new CB, Duchy Expansion. This allows the vassal to expand the realm more easily without the emperor having to go to war. I love this. I'm sorry, this is really cool. I really like where this is going. Let's take a look at this. You can see right here, taxes relatively low, levies standard, I think. Let's actually check this, right? Yeah, levies standard, 10%, there you go. This is Frontier. Defend advantage +8. Hostile county attrition -30%. Fort level +2. Hostile raid time +75%. You gain efficiency based on prowess and unlocks the Duchy expansion Casus Belli. The big question that I have here is the Duchy expansion actually a full duchy, or is it just my duchy is being expanded via a county? And if so, if it's a full duchy, do I get the theme? Does the emperor get the theme? Do I get the land? Does the emperor get the land? Do I get influence from it? Oh my god. Gaining influence from waging frontier wars sounds amazing. I really need to do this, but I have no answer for any of these questions because these answers weren't given in the thread. Unlucky. Then we have Imperial. The Imperial administration type is inspired by how certain themes within the Byzantine Empire were considered to have a higher seniority than others. It would lead to a few themes being seen as more prestigious and more valued compared to other themes. In this case, there can only be a single theme that has Imperial administration, but I would argue, if you take a look at this, you as a liege will gain prestige per legitimacy level, legitimacy gain plus 20%, prestige and influence go up for the vassal, and vassal benefits are level of fame scales with efficiency, or efficiency scales with level of fame, increases powerful family rating, and cannot have appointment revoked without a title revocation reason. The truth about this is, you want to secure this title. And again, the more you snowball, the easier will it be to secure the title, and then once you secure the title, you become objectively better, and your whole family is doing better. It is endless snowballing. Absolutely zero downsides. Now, the last administration type right here is naval. Now, take note, no naval mechanics are being introduced in this release, okay? Don't even think about it. This is just a stylization. It gives you some economical advantage by increasing the development growth, portrayed as increased trade and overall naval activity, as well as some military perks. Let's take a look at this right here. Embarkation cost and naval speed, yep, same thing right here. Coastal advantage plus 15, no advantage penalty from disembarking. That's huge, actually, thinking about it. And development growth plus 10%. And then you also gain naval duchy expansion casus belli. I like this. I think these are super interesting. Being the emperor and changing administration types. And you as the emperor, they say this later, we don't need to read it because I know it by heart. The emperor can change it whenever. As a vassal, you can request it, and if the emperor says yes, like here for example, then you can change it. I really like this. I hope we can't see it anywhere. I hope when I open... Does it show this? Wait, let's scroll up here, right? I hope when I open the interface for the themes, that the themes are colored in the type they have. So that I can... No, they all just have their standard color. See, that's kind of disappointing. I would have liked it if I can look at this and go, oh yeah, this is my frontier area, my marches. Because that also has to be said, just for the record. Marches, which is basically a frontier area, that's literally what that is, were everywhere. We have marches in, for example, Spain, we have them in eastern Germany, we have them towards the Slavs, we have them towards the Danes, we have them all the way between the Abbasids and the Byzantines and so on and so forth. This is what marches are, right? Seeing your realm set up. This is where we have to fight the foreigners, where we have trouble with raiders and so on. And this is where we are just doing well and we are pretty cool. That stuff is awesome. I really like this differentiation. It doesn't seem so small in what you do, since there's just 6 types that you ever get lost in. It doesn't seem like it would be too micro-intensive. And I do have some questions. Let's say I take Sicily, right? And I create a kingdom theme and I give that kingdom theme to somebody. Can I make that entire kingdom a frontier theme? That sounds deranged. That sounds insane. But then again, why wouldn't I, right? Because what comes next blows my mind. I'm a big, big fan of what is coming next. I have equally as many questions as always and as many doubts, since none of these questions are answered here in the dev diary. But what comes next is the first time that the Byzantine system will actually be properly depicted in a Crusader Kings game. Let's take a look. Alright, let's talk about Imperial troops. The Byzantine military was primarily made up of organized armies and well-drilled troops, led by highly skilled commanders. They tended to rely more on professional troops and less on levied soldiers, at least during the later centuries of the empire's existence. This is something that I think it's fair to gloss over. As much as I want, more depth in government systems, the Byzantine system, feudalism, all that stuff from 800 to 1444, whenever CK3 ends, right? Nobody plays to the end anyway. That government changes a lot. So it's not always the same. The nature of themes changed over history. There were plenty of reforms and it would be so cool to have them, but I understand that you abstract that stuff away at some point. We are introducing a new system to represent this, one where both governors and the emperor are able to recruit and keep men-at-arms for their titles. Title men-at-arms are recruited directly to a held title of duchy tier or above, not included noble family titles, and are then raised like any other type of troops. Since they belong to a title, these are not a character's personal troops that they get to keep upon succession. When you lose a title that has men-at-arms, those troops will follow the title itself and be made available to the new holder. In other words, these troops will pass from governor to governor, regardless of who the governor is. This is so interesting. There's now a differentiation in administrative governments only, has to be pointed out, but there is a differentiation between the state organizationist troops and troops that personally owe you allegiance. You can see this right here, and let's take a good look at this, because there are some highlights here that I'm super curious about. We have the themes right here. We can see these have no troops. These already have, gotten some troops, and they're currently filling. That's why they're at 95 out of 100. They're men-at-arms after all, right? And then we have an interface right here, where it says status available. Armies and governorships. We have Imperial armies and your armies. So Imperial armies obviously belongs to a title, right? We can create a men-at-arms regiment here as well, which I assume would be for the title of the Emperor. Maybe even... You think the Emperor can assign troops to like a certain title he holds? So like just a duchy? Interesting. Anyway, we have those, and they are all visible here in this map mode. What interests me quite a lot, I can't really make perfect sense of this, but think about it this way. What we're about to learn about these troops, where you can basically take troops that are not yours, you can commission them if you will, makes it so that it will be very much harder to understand what the actual strength of the Byzantine Empire is. When we look at the Byzantine Empire, as for example Robert the Fox, we want to conquer it, we see a number, and then we go, okay, but wait a minute, that guy could hire mercenaries, and he could use influence to actually take some of the troops that are elsewhere, again we're going to see this in just a second, and assign them to their army, maybe temporarily. I don't know exactly how that works. I am wondering whether total imperial strength is actually a numerical value or whether this describes proper strength levels. So an actual evaluation of like, hey, wait a minute, these are this and that quality. If I see now the number 9,000 in the Byzantine Empire, and let's say that's just a troop number, that number is different than the number 9,000 in France, because in France, the vast majority of that number would be made up of levies, whereas here, it would vastly be made up of men-at-arms, which makes the Byzantine Empire A, probably way more powerful, but B, also makes it so that I will have trouble actually reading what I will be facing when I'm fighting it. So I wonder whether this number right here, obviously it's a meme, it's over 9,000, okay, we're all millennials, I get it, okay? I'm curious whether this number is an actual troop number. But I don't know, currently this looks like just a pure placeholder. I don't think this number means anything. I'm basically interpreting this because if you do not assign an objective combat value score, it will be impossible to read how strong is this country actually. Because they have a completely different ratio of men-at-arms. And you will see now that these men-at-arms also have a huge set of percentages. If they clarify how strong this nation is based on, you know, a number that isn't just the troop number, the troop count, that would be tremendous. Anyway, these new men-at-arms include some obvious advantages for an administrative realm. The Empire's military strength is significantly higher than those of other realms, since the Emperor will have access to a lot more men-at-arms through his governors. The Emperor has the ability to borrow armies managed by the governors, effectively taking command of a governor's title troops directly. Wow. He can also reassign a governor's army to another governorship, allowing the corresponding governor to use them instead. Taking or reassigning troops can be done by spending influence. If you, as the Emperor, have the influence to spare, you can get access to a tremendous amount of men-at-arms, allowing you to beat your enemies with ease. Which brings us to the original vision of administrative realms. When well managed, we want them to perform exceedingly well and be very powerful in comparison to other government types. Let's continue. The Empire has a clear benefit by having access to a much greater pool of men-at-arms to draw from when expanding its borders or defending itself against enemies. But it also means that the governors have a lot more punching power. Should they end up in a position where they dislike the Emperor or are coerced into joining a claimant faction, civil wars will be frequent and pose a substantial threat. The influence cost for taking or reassigning troops varies depending on your situation. The cost is reduced slightly for defensive wars, for example, giving you an easier time to defend yourself. When you are fighting offensive wars, on the other hand, taking troops from governors who are far away from the front line will cost you a lot more influence. This creates a fine balance where you have to consider how you're waging your wars. You will have to be mindful of how much influence you have available and where the troops are coming from in order to make the most of your governor's armies. I have so many questions about this. So what you can see here already, and I think they mention it in the segment below. Let's actually talk about this. Title men-at-arms have two further considerations. They can be stationed just like personal men-at-arms. Additionally, title men-at-arms are affected by the governor efficiency of the title's holder. Yes, this does mean that if you have a really good governor, their troops are going to pack quite a punch. As long as they are on your side, if they rise up in rebellion against you, you will be fighting against significantly better troops. Most governors will, however, generally have a lower efficiency and decrease the efficiency of their troops accordingly, which balances levies versus men-at-arms. We're going to take a look at the screenshots in just a second, don't worry. I mean, okay, we can actually take a look at this one right here. Check this out, you can see their damage is impacted by minus 24% from governor efficiency. That is nothing to sneeze at. To further balance the much larger pool of available men-at-arms, we have done several things. The overall limit and regiment size is notably lower for men-at-arms than it is for personal men-at-arms, or title men-at-arms. As the realm expands, you will have more titles and thus also gain more troops. These really add up over time, so limiting how many regiments each title can have makes a lot of sense. This meshes well with the idea that an administrative realm is meant to become a large and sprawling empire. I don't like this idea, but it is what it is. Another balancing factor is that administrative rulers will have less space for personal men-at-arms. Both the regular men-at-arms limit and the men-at-arms size are reduced, allowing them to field less personal troops than other government types. The availability of title troops makes up for it to a large extent. The focus here is, after all, less on personal troops and more on providing the empire with efficient armies. Administrative, as a result of the focus on men-at-arms, also has a lot less emphasis on levies. We reduce the overall amount of levies by a flat minus 50%, making levies largely irrelevant. Remember that a governor's efficiency may also reduce the amount of levies further, should their efficiency be below 0. I really like how unique and dedicated this system is to differentiating between personal allegiance troops and troops within the state. I really, really like this concept. I have various questions. For example, if I claim one of these armies, right? Let's take a look at this right here. You can see it right here. Right? We've claimed these troops, right? That's what the return troops indicates. And you can actually see right here, Mesopotamia, at the start in this screenshot, we haven't taken the troops yet. So it's not... Oh, I liked it. They have a good map mode here, I think. We haven't taken those troops yet. Then we... Oh, and you actually... Oh, I didn't even see this. The Byzantine Empire army and the theme of Thrace army. So you can see, yes, we can build into any title. That's so good. I like that. I really do. I like that. If I take somebody's troops, so I loan them out, does this have a steady cost? So am I paying influence every month I have them? Does this just have an upfront cost? Is there a time limit? Can the governor take it back? Can they ask for it back? If the governor joins a faction, their troops will count into my troop count. Take a look at this up here. 2,561. 2,694. Does their troop count that I took from them count into my strength? Into their strength? Into both of our strength? If they rebel but I have claimed their troops, do they get the troops back and I lose them? What is going on here? There are so many open questions that I have for them because they have to work with existing mechanics like factions where I'm not sure how exactly that is going to pan out. If I am a governor, right? And let me actually verify this. Can governors borrow armies as well? It seems to be only the emperor actually. Oh. The emperor can borrow armies or send them to a different... Yeah, reassign them to a different governorship. Interesting. I wonder whether governors can do this at all. Because my logic here is just, let's say I have plenty of armies assigned to myself, right? Like to my theme. Can I, if I rebel with them, do I rebel with them? Or do they flip back to just being in the empire since I left it, quote unquote? I have so many questions for this, but fundamentally, this change is massive. I love what we are seeing here, tying it to titles, creating the notion of a state, and most importantly, making so that indeed we're talking about professional armies. The Byzantine Empire was one of the very few instances where this was really created as standard for how things should work, what the hierarchy is, and so on. Obviously, there are some difficulties when a governor goes against you, and we don't know exactly how this works here, but this looks so promising. Especially, of course, because the governor modifies it. How does it work? If I have the kingdom theme of a kingdom, can I still use... So I'm the emperor, and there's a kingdom theme like Pontus, right? Can I use that guy's troops and the troops of the theme within that guy's realm? Or can I only use people that are directly underneath me? Because that would be a huge argument against governor kingdom titles, right? If I then lose access to like 2,000 men-at-arms underneath that king governor. Ooh, that's a good question. Can I use all of them as long as they are a part of the Byzantine Empire? Like I could access them? Ooh, I do like the map mod, by the way. I really want to highlight this as well. You gotta praise the team when they do really good map mods. I wonder whether you can click here and then this menu opens as well. That would be amazing. But anyway, the way this is promising cannot be understated. I think for reusing this, so we're talking about like eventually surely China. I don't know how nomads would work. Nomads feel very personal, like you're personally in control. I could see this as honor guards, that kind of stuff, right? I could see this maybe with the future as well if unlanded characters, like actual mercenary bands become playable, that could also be a consideration there. A difference between your mercenary band troops and maybe troops that are sworn to you directly, although even that differentiation doesn't make that much sense. Where this really makes sense is the Fallen Eagle, for example. They already have a legion system. I think that would be super cool here. I really wish that I could just not be a governor and instead be a general that commands imperial troops like this, which should be possible since they are now title-based, right? Give me a temporary title for that campaign, give that title troops that come from the empire itself, that come from, for example, other governors, and then I do my campaign. I think that would be great. I think that would be really cool. Doesn't seem to be the case, just for the record. They don't mention generals at all. In general, this right here is the one feature where I have the least negative thoughts, although so many questions with how it actually works. But you always got to consider, if I can think of the questions, the developers can, right? So yeah, I really love this. I think this has so much potential, infinite potential effectively. All right, folks, now I promise you that we are inching closer and closer to the end of this very long Dev Diary and video. Let's talk about Imperial Bureaucracy. Administrative realms have a new law which replaces the regular Crown Authority law named Imperial Bureaucracy. It's basically just Crown Authority. A few facts worth mentioning. Vassal titles cannot be inherited outside of the realm starting at level 1. In practice, this prevents them from ever doing so. Higher levels only increase the tax contribution of admin vassals. Vassals of other government types are unaffected, making them much less valuable. War declarations for non-administrative vassals are heavily imposed with each consecutive level. At maximum level, they are unable to declare war outright. I would like to know whether level 1 already means non-administrative vassals cannot attack administrative vassals, because then that whole issue is solved. If it doesn't mean that, why would I not be feudal, swear fealty, eat the Byzantine Empire from within, and then go independent, right? The highest level reduces the influence cost for the emperor to take command of a governor's troops. Very, very cool, I like that. Another significant difference is that only the top liege can change the bureaucracy level. All administrative vassals will simply follow suit automatically, so they don't have their own, using whichever level their liege has. If you're not administrative, you still have your own. Take a look at this. Oh, this is level 2. So we're seeing the level 2 screenshot here. Your liege recently adopted this law. Glory Hound vassal, parole, okay. Administrative vassal tax-based contribution plus 5%. Vassal limit plus 100. I guess they just... Can't they just disable the vassal limit for administrative governments then? Come on, this is just like, effectively this disables it. Rulers can change between available partition succession laws, titles can be revoked, vassals can be retracted, non-administrative vassals cannot wage war against other vassals. Oh. From previous levels, vassals' titles cannot be inherited. No, I totally can. If I'm feudal or clan and a vassal of the Byzantine Empire, I can totally eat up the themes. I hate that. I think that's really bad. I think that sucks. The idea being, I mean, I can voluntarily turn administrative, right? To play the administrative game. Or I just fabricate claims and conquer all of you? Who cares, right? Why wouldn't I do that? Kind of odd. Anyway, any vassals of other government types will still retain their corresponding authority law, like I mentioned. Let's move on to state faith. In administrative realms, the faith of the top liege and the faith associated with the empire in general have been separated, because there's a state institution and then there's the emperor. Obviously, you have a state church. It's a huge thing in the Roman Empire and then in the Eastern Roman Empire as well, so this only makes sense. I really like this. For example, Byzantium may well see multiple iconoclast or bogomolist empires come and go throughout the years, while remaining orthodox at its core. That's not to say one of these emperors can't change the state faith, which is done through a new decision, though at great cost. And my god, the cost is huge. Change state faith. Your government allows state faith, and you are not orthodox, so you don't have the state faith. They will adopt iconoclasm, and then 5,000. Jesus Christ. Wow. Now they do say, further down, this further affects how characters within the realm interact with each other. It's harder to get characters to convert away from the state faith, and on the flip side, much easier to get them to start practicing it. Peer pressure goes a long way here. You can see it right there. Practices the state faith minus 150. State faith is not tied specifically to administrative realms, so this can be modded. I'll note that this feature wasn't exactly planned for when we set out to make this DLC, but we added state faith because it felt wrong not to have it. We think this, along with other features we have discussed in the dev diary, will help admin realms feel markedly different and novel compared to established playstyles. I like this. If you want to convert the empire, then you have to really work for it. I do wonder. Think I can convert the Byzantine Empire to Islam? I gotta try that. I feel like I gotta try that. It's very costly, but just imagine, if you have these resources, hey, why not, right? Now here we come to a topic that I really loathe. I don't like it at all. I think all of this is bad, but okay. Adopting administrative. Any feudal or clan ruler will have access to a decision that lets them replace their current government and become administrative. Note that you have to be an empire already before you can do so. Additionally, you will need to surpass a minimum realm size. An administrative realm is meant to be a large empire, so adopting it as a tiny ruler makes little sense. You will also need the approval of your powerful vassals, as you won't be able to perform such a radical reform in your government with at least your most influential vassal supporting you. It will cost you a lot of gold to become an admin realm though. The gold cost scales with your realm size, so you will want to become administrative before you become too large. No one ever said it would be cheap nor easy to strive towards a more bureaucratic playstyle. The Holy Roman Empire must be governed by laws, institutions, and merit, not family inheritance and personal allegiances. You increase your legitimacy level to true. Any feudal or clan ruler within your de jure realm, and that is of your faith, will change government type into administrative as long as they have positive opinion of you. Completely deranged, I'm sorry. You gain lawgiver, you gain 100 influence. Your realm why are you gaining 100 influence? Your realm consists of more than 75 counties. Your level of fame is illustrious or above. You're an emperor. And all powerful vassals must have opinion with you of 50 or more. Costs a crazy amount of money, sure. The fact that I don't need to be centralized for this. The fact that everybody goes, yeah, let's give up hereditary titles. The fact that I am expected to do this before I blob, and then I just blob like this, when that is... It's not really how that went historically. I loathe this decision, okay? I understand why it's in the game. Obviously, the intention is, okay, you want to open up administrative to other realms as well. Sure, fair enough. It makes it interesting, right? I'm not saying anything against it, but this has nothing to do with anything historically. I'm sorry, it's just... How do you convince your powerful vassals just because they like you? They should give up the hereditary title of their duchies, their kingdoms, their whatever. It makes no sense. I hate it. But that's just a consequence of the way governments are done. You need some kind of transition between these governments if administrative is intended to be the endgame empire type of government, then this is the decision you use. Not a fan at all. Upon taking the decision, the vast majority of your vassals will change governments alongside you, though not everyone probably will. Your powerful vassals will always change governments since you need their approval. Other vassals are less eager. Vassals of a different faith, for example, will likely not accept. Since it is your own faith, it will become the new state faith. And if your empire is fairly vast already, any non-de jure vassals you may have will also not become administrative. Fortunately, you have tools available to convince these vassals to become a part of your bureaucracy sooner or later. A new character interaction allows you to spend gold in an attempt to make non-admin vassals adopt your... Bro, I'm really trying to get over how much I am tilted over governments just being CK2 governments again. We're not getting anything more interesting. These are better CK2 governments. They're better. But they don't explore what governance means in the historical context at all. Do you think if you walk up to the Duke of Bohemia and you say, here's 200 money, maybe 5,000, here's 5,000 coin. Are you willing to make a title non-hereditary? You think he really goes, yeah, that sounds cool to me? Or does he go, excuse you? This is my land. I own this land. I physically cannot be separated from it because I am this land. This is mine. I own this. My family owns this land. Ridiculous. I'm sorry, it makes no sense. Hate it. Anyway, I don't have to use it. There you go. Do know that the requirements are still pending. Again, yeah, sure, but this is just the whole thing. It doesn't work that way. Let's talk about historical administrative realms. This is, I believe, the last topic right here. It is. Oh my god, it took so long. Upon taking the decision... no, there you go. Since the content focus on roads to power is centered on Byzantium, we have not applied administrative government to any other realms on game start by default. We will discuss content a bit later on this summer in the dev diary about Byzantine flavor, but suffice it to say that the content for admin realms is greatly inspired by Byzantium, while not being completely locked to that cultural context. We know players will be itching to try out admin in other places. This is a cool... I get this, right? There are some stuff like the Carolingians, were they really administrative in 867? Not really. There were some non-hereditary titles, but right, they have basically devolved into a feudal structure. I have no problem with this, because I think this is basically just a game rule, or a set of game rules. It's confirmed actually to be a set of game rules, so each of these tags has their own game rule now, where it's like, okay, you want to play admin, but not in Byzantium, right? I think that's cool. That makes it possible. Yeah, sure, whatever. Just make it so that I have an interesting time. That is what I want out of CK3, right? I get this. Completely optional. You can do whatever you want. I'm fine with this. I did ask whether they consider, hey, this realm could historically be seen as administrative to fit this kind of niche, but not all vassals. You can see it right here already. Armenia, if you make the Abbasids into an administrative realm, Armenia is not administrative. It is not tagged as a theme. And I really like this. That is super cool. Because basically, this is like a specific thing. I asked them, is this done for the Carolingians as well? For example, Aquitaine may not be something that makes sense to have as an admin duchy, even if you choose admin duchy. And they were saying, no, that's not the case. It's only Armenia for the time being, which is okay. But they are saying that this is something you can do. You can script this. You can say, if this rule is active, turn everybody into, for example, administrative stuff like Basra and so on, except these folks up there. I'm totally cool with this. This implementation, obviously, it's kind of like optional. It's like, okay, if you want to dive in there, gets rid of needing mods for this and makes it very modular. Big fan. I think that is the right approach. Now, there you go. This is the end of this. Let's summarize. Next week, 1178, hopefully not that long, a dev diary. I hope to see a lot of different assets, right? The Mask of Baldwin, for example, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I like what we get here from a pure this could be fun point of view. I can picture myself being the head of a house, building up my estate, taking a governorship where I learn to be a governor, then I become, if it's possible to retire, a frontier governor. While I spread my family out all around, I start fighting wars, gain influence, and basically I'm just recognized as a great governor for the empire, and then I'm elected emperor. That sounds amazing to me, really fun. I'm not sure about schemes. I have high hopes for schemes, but it seems unlikely. Not sure what the rework brings there. Basically just, you know, analyzing UX so far. I really love Imperial armies. Although I have concerns from the UX side, I think there's a lot to be gained from title-bound troops that we can shuffle around in the hierarchy. Really cool stuff. I hate everything related to, like, adopt the government. It does... I'm defeated on this, okay? Anyway, I also asked a question here. Let me just open this. Nope, no recent conversations. Yep, there you go. I left a couple of questions in here. Let's see whether I have mentioned all of them or whether I haven't. When are troops I borrowed returned? We already talked about this. Do the game rules differentiate between different vassals? I already explained to you what the dev response for this one was the only one that got an answer. What happens if my firstborn son? We already talked about this. Should the admin government maybe have some type of authority requirement to adopt it? It seems insane that a highly decentralized empire would just break with inheritance traditions like that without any type of central pressure or organizational development. Well, I mean, I hope they're changing the requirements there, but obviously it doesn't change that you don't just give up hereditary rights. It's a long-term process of your government transitioning. I could cry about this. I talked to an ex-developer. This is just, if you've watched so far, you deserve this story, okay? I've talked to an ex-developer, and he was talking about, like, what he would have liked to do. It's not exactly like what I wanted, so... He didn't leave in, like, any negative spirit or whatever. He just took a different job, right? It's how universe and careers work. But yeah, I was like, man, I really wish that was it. We're not getting modular governments, so, like, best we can do is, like, make the requirements make more sense, but in general, it just doesn't make sense at all. How do I best evaluate the actual strength of an admin empire? That is why I was thinking, right, that this might be a combat power kind of number rather than a number. And then if a governor whose troops... Oh, you know what? I mentioned all these in the video already. Very nice. There will be videos coming up for 1178. There will also be a CK3 playthrough whenever CyberXcan implements the Sicilian struggle in the Rice mod. And I will also make videos on the nature of pay versus free for CK3 because there are changes there and I'm not too happy with it. And yeah, we're going to make videos about all that stuff. Let me know what you think about everything that we've talked about here. It was a ton. I personally recorded for 1 hour 33 minutes. I hope I can cut it down to like 1 hour roughly. Anyway, I am dying. I'll leave it right here and I will see you later, alligator.